Good evening and welcome back. This is Ethelred, the worst Civ player on YouTube. So today I got some feedback on the first two episodes, and that feedback was that I have grossly misunderestimated the importance of the National College and over-prioritized my religion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this ship around and we're going to go get the National College right now. So let's see. Excuse me, I think we need philosophy in order to do that. We will switch what we're researching to that. And so it will be 22 turns until we can get started on the National College. We will by then have all of our libraries. So with that, let's stall this worker on his progress towards Nottingham, in order so that we may... Oh my goodness gracious. Wow. Let's get around those guys if we can. So that we can, yes, get down here to Nottingham and start improving something. Valletta under attack. Very good. Fine, I don't care. They're far enough away that it's neither here nor there to me. I wonder if these... I doubt that they can throw a hand axe all the way out here. I think I'm going to do nothing the rest of this turn and try to sneak by on the next one. So, what's happening in history? It is 170 BC. Let's take a look. I've got my notes here. 170. Lost myself in my notes. Oh yes, advanced pottery techniques were invented. So, I know you're going to get sick of hearing me say this, but that kind of thing has already existed for thousands of years in Mesopotamia, but whatever. Alright, let's try to get by now. How far can we... Oh yes, we can. Boom, right by. And then back to the shoreline. I wonder if we'll find anyone down here. What's this? Little island. What's the name of this island? Wow, crabs. Such crabs. Mini crabs. No AIs. And let's continue to march our worker along. Yeah, so at this point I realize I'm now significantly behind the AI in terms of my science, and I may be, permanently gimped at this point. Maybe I'll never recover from my mistakes in the first 100 or so turns. If that's the case, so be it. We will enjoy the history even if I can't win. And if I can't win by domination, as I said, I will take whatever victory condition it looks like it will be most likely. So, not giving up. Not for 1 minute. Alright, so it's 5 turns until I get monarchy. That will settle the unhappiness problem. I think then that what I'm going to do is improve this pasture first. Yes, I'll improve the pasture first so I can improve the growth rate of Nottingham, because growth rate will equal science. Let's see if there's any other barbarians down here. Alright, so about this time, it's 125 BC, about this time currency was also invented in Britain. And what they used for currency were these square marks, square chunks of iron or silver. Ethiopia wants to be friends. Let's see, who are you enemies with? No one? Sure, let's do it. Although I'm not going to trust you. I know what happened in the last game. I know whose side you're on. Anyway, so what happened after 100 BC? Oh yes, 55 BC is the next point that I'll have anything to say, but we'll let things ride a little bit. Just cattle and empty nothingness down here. It really chafes that I have allowed so much time to pass without the National College, but it is what it is. Hey, let's send this warrior up north to see if there's any barbarians up here. And no, I didn't mean for you to go get on a ship and sail up there. Speaking of sailing, Let's avoid the barbarian archers. I would desperately love to find another civilization. I'd like to get to Asia, honestly, is where I'd like to get to. We'll skip the rest of that turn. See if we can sneak by this barbarian encampment. Yep. And what have we here? Congo. Alright, so we finished this worker. Now what do we do until we got 14 turns until we get started on the National College? Let's work on a watermill because that will help both our food production and our production, both of which will be important for writing the ship of state. And with this worker, I'm going to come up here and start establishing a camp. No other barbarians down here. Very good. We'll do kind of a musical chairs with our archers then. There. So 55 BC. Oh yes, Rome. Starting to take an interest in Britain for a couple of different reasons that are tied together at the hip. So, I believe I mentioned earlier, hooray monarchy, that tin was readily available in Britain, and that when alloyed with copper, you get yourself bronze, which is much harder than copper. And so you could make much more dangerous weapons with it. And what Britain was doing was it was shipping it across the channel to the Gauls who lived in northern Europe and selling it to them, and they in turn would make bronze weapons which they would fight their eternal war against Rome. So Rome, deciding that they'd had enough of the Gauls, and they'd had enough specifically of the Gauls with bronze weapons, they decided that they could kill two birds with one stone. They could deprive the Gauls of bronze by taking Britain, and they also could get some new tin mines for themselves if they were to invade Britain. So Julius Caesar himself led an invasion in the first year of 10,000 men, and then brought along 25,000 the next year. Now, it's not exactly clear what Julius Caesar's intentions here were. It was either just a recon in force to see what does Britain look like, or it was an attempted invasion. If it was an attempt at invasion, it unfortunately, I don't know, didn't go very well for Caesar. He landed here, and they took notes of the barbarians that they found there, which they described as being similar in speech, custom, and appearance to their eternal arch-enemies, the Gauls, which makes sense, right? Because the Gauls were what the Romans called the Celts. And the Celts, as I mentioned at the very beginning of this series, were a culture which spread from, they went from northern Europe on one hand, through Britain, over to Ireland and Scotland. That was the Celtish people. The Romans called them the Gauls. And so they've been fighting the Gauls in Europe. They get over to Britain, and what do they find? According to their description, there's more Gauls over here. Well, the British saw themselves differently by then. The separation of the English Channel for thousands of years had given a sense of identity to the islanders. They were British. They weren't Gauls. They spoke Brythonic, not the Celtic of the mainland. Or, you know, the mainland languages eventually would become whatever they were. I don't actually know. I didn't do that research. But they were speaking Brythonic here in Britain. And the tribal chieftains, seeing foreign invaders, rallied at Kent and fought them off. And in fact did something amazing. The British, using war chariots, met the Romans in battle time and time again. And their technique for using these chariots was very interesting. What they would do is they would come riding up to the Roman formation in their chariots, and they would, some of them, 2, 3, 4, a percentage of them, would stop out of bow shot, out of catapult shot, or whatever siege weapons the Romans had brought with them. They would stop out of range. The rest would ride their chariots and use them as basically the mounted units that they are for striking the flanks, going after siege weapons and archers and other cavalry and trying to cause mayhem, not going at the front lines at all, but hitting left and right and trying to get behind and just cause madness. And then when they had done enough of that, they would ride right down the throat of the infantry, leap off of their chariots, and engage in barbarian versus legionnaire combat toe-to-toe. And if things started to go badly for them, then they ran back to the chariots that were waiting a short distance away, got on them, and left the battle, and survived to fight another day. And these tactics worked, because the next year, having defeated Julius Caesar, the Romans were thrown back into the sea and forced to retreat. And so ended the first invasion. It's precious rarely that the Roman legion is defeated, especially under the command of Julius Caesar, and the Brits did it. That was 55 BC, if I'm right. Let me check my notes here. Yeah, 55 BC was when Caesar started his invasion, and it was all said and done by, let's see here, yes, 54 BC, the very next year, they were defeated. All right, so now with the introduction of Romans to the scene and written records, things become quite a bit more delineated. And so these turns are going to go very slowly because, I just clicked next turn once and we're already at 20 BC and a lot happens in between now and then. All right, so in 41 AD, Julius Caesar, long since dead. Now, there's been another line of aristocrats who have been the royalty, the emperors, the line from which the emperors spring in Rome. And one of their family was something of a misshapen wretch. Yeah, it's understood he had something along the lines of hunchback. He spoke with a lisp. He was stuttering. His family considered him to be a total idiot. In fact, let's see if there's an anecdote about how they treated him. This fellow was Tiberius Claudius Caesar. And no, I apparently didn't note what they had done, but I believe he was actually, as a child, he was handed over to a stable keeper or something like that, someone who took care of donkeys, and he was treated more or less like a donkey. Anyway, I never said in any of this that Tiberius was stupid, and he used his intellect and his family's positions to secure himself the crown. He became emperor of Rome, to the shock and surprise of everyone. Now, when he did so, he had many, many enemies in Rome. There was obviously a lot of resistance to this hunchback, this stuttering, stammering idiot getting uppity. Oh, look, Cape Town, 30 gold. No one's been here before. Anyway, so yes, he had a lot of political enemies. And what does somebody do when they have too many political problems at home? You start a war someplace else. You create for yourself an external enemy, which is exactly what Tiberius did. He went back to war with Britain. But Tiberius, as I've pointed out, was an extremely clever fellow. So he invaded, and he landed his troops at Kent. And this time, the Brits, for some reason, actually chose not to fight at the beach. There were two British chieftains that were brothers. And this is something that I'm finding a lot of, is that the locals, the British chieftains, they would share rulership, oftentimes between brothers, working as a team, not a bunch of daggers in the back for your brother kind of thing. But no, there were these two British warriors, brothers, chieftains, and their names were Togodumnus and Caraticus. And they made the strategic mistake of letting the Romans get a foothold at Kent. and figure, well, we'll fight them in a set-piece battle north of Kent. And that's what they did. And the Romans, they did what the Romans do best, and that's win set-piece battles. And Togodumnus was killed. Caradocus survived, grieving for his brother. Now, this battle, I have a feeling, was fought somewhere just about here, north of London. Well, Caradocus fled to Wales. This is Wales here. And just like it is on this map, Wales is very rough territory. Deep valleys, high cliffs, narrow choke points. And when the Romans moved into Wales, they found that Caradocus had united all of the tribes against the Romans, and he was out for vengeance. He wanted to avenge his brother, and he wanted to throw the Romans out, and they turned Wales into a Vietnam for the Romans. Every mile that the Romans advanced, they would be met with British up on the cliffs, throwing stones down on them, or jumping out from behind some rocks to attack and then vanish. And that fighting lasted for 4 years in Wales, at great cost of Roman life. Eventually, though, Caradocus was captured along with his family, and he was hauled back to Rome. Now, this is a fantastic story. This is not fantasy. This fellow Caradocus, brought in chains to Rome, was sent to the emperor in public for his execution. And the emperor asking, "Do you have any last words?" Well, these words come down to us, true history from Caradocus. I'm going to read it word for word, because if it's been worthwhile to write down and remember for 2,000 years, it's worthwhile to read verbatim not in a podcast, but in a Let's Play. Caradocus says to the Roman Emperor Tiberius, "If the degree of my nobility and fortune had been matched by moderation and success, I would have come to this city as a friend rather than as a captive, nor would you have disdained to receive with a treaty of peace one sprung from brilliant ancestors and commanding a great many nations," by which he's referring to the tribes that he'd led in Wales. "But my present lot, disfiguring as it is for me, is magnificent for you. I had horses, men, arms, and wealth. What wonder if I was unwilling to lose them? If you wish to command everyone, does it really follow that everyone should accept your slavery? If I were now being handed over as one who surrendered immediately, neither my fortune nor your glory would have achieved brilliance. It is also true that in my case, any reprisal will be followed by oblivion. Now, on the other hand, if you preserve me safe and sound, I shall be an eternal example of your clemency." And these words, they moved Tiberius to clemency, and he pardoned this British tribal chieftain. He said, "Now, you're not going to go home. You'll live here in Rome in a villa, where I can keep an eye on you," the old maxim of keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. And he gave him a stipend. He actually gave him an amount of money each month for him and his family to live on in a villa in Rome. And just as Caradocus said, no matter what happens to me here today, whether or not you give me clemency or not, I will fade into oblivion. Nothing ever came of Caradocus the rest of his years. Him and his family lived a peaceful life in Rome. And that's the end of Caradocus. So, that was in 51 AD. Jeez, so much time passes. So 54. I'm going to try to move quickly to catch up with 20 BC. 54 AD, Nero the Mad becomes emperor of Rome. Oh my gosh, but there's another great story. I'll click next turn once, and I'll tell you about Boudicca. Oh, look, here's the Ottoman Empire. So, and Bucharest is their ally. Okay, so next turn. Now, not all of the Brits fought tooth and nail against the Romans. There was a kingdom right about here. Oh, work has now begun on a shrine. Where? Let's not work on a shrine. Let's work on a watermill. I think I've got, with Stonehenge, I think I've got enough faith for the time being. And likewise, Nottingham, You will also work on a watermill when you're done with your library. Yes. Very good. Okay, so back to this kingdom here. The British tribal chieftain here was an older fellow, and he didn't want fighting against the Romans. He saw that as being a great loss of life. So when the Romans came knocking, he let them in and he said, "We bow the knee. We swallow our pride and we accept your overlordship." And so his people were spared. And there was no war in his kingdom. And when he was about to die of old age, he changed his will such that he gave half of his money to the Roman governor. And he figured that this would earn such good feelings between his family and this governor that he could be assured that his successor would enjoy a good relationship with the governor. Well, then he died of old age. And the Roman governor, do I have his name? Let's see. No. I've got the British king's name, but it's almost not worth mentioning because events are already past him. He's dead. So he dies, and the governor says, "You know what? I'm going to show everybody in this kingdom who's boss. It's me. And I don't care what this flimsy will says." So he tears up the will, and he lets his men sack and pillage. And he takes 100% of this king's wealth. And then, just to drive it home, he drags the king's wife and their children out in public, where he flogs the queen and rapes the daughters. Well, this queen was no other than Boudicca. And she was enraged to see her children raped in public and for herself to be flogged and for this great betrayal after her husband had bent over backwards for these Romans all these years. She wanted revenge, and she got it. She led 100,000 of her countrymen against the Romans, and she fought the 9th Legion. And she defeated the 9th Legion again and again and again. And when she defeated them, she would raze their cities. She destroyed several cities in this manner. Let's see if I've got the list here. Let's see. Oh, yes. It was Camalodonium. These are all Roman cities, right? Camalodunum, all right, which is modern-day Colchester. Lodinium, which is modern-day London. And Verulamium. And when she defeated these cities and their Roman barracks, and she razed them to the ground, the fires that she lit, the firestorms that she burned these cities down with, reached, according to archaeological evidence, temperatures up to 600 degrees centigrade. That's 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And because she burned these cities with everyone in them, it's estimated that 70 to 80,000 people died by her hand. Now, she's whooping the 9th Legion, burning the cities, killing tens of thousands of people. And back in Rome, Nero hears about this, and he panics. He's about ready to give the order to withdraw the legions to Rome. Britain gets this close to winning its freedom under Boudicca when the impossible happens. The 9th Legion, defeated again and again and again, but not completely destroyed, rallies on a hill for a last stand. And Boudicca's men, who have seen victory after victory after victory, are drunk on their successes. They underestimate the Romans, which is a major mistake. And they just come running up to the Romans to finish off these guys and go home and drink. Well, the Romans have circled their wagons and made a shield wall on the top of this hill. And they fought like legends. And they defeated Boudicca there. And Boudicca was no more. And her army was broken. And her movement fell apart. And the Romans resurged and crushed Boudicca's rebellion. So that was 61 AD. That battle that I just mentioned where the Romans turn it back around is referred to as the Battle of Watling Street. In 71 AD. Oh, good! Some time passes. That was 61 AD. I've gotten so far ahead of myself here. How did I get so far ahead? Oh, I don't know. Anyway, so now I can click next turn like 3 or 4 times. Let's do it. Civs? Any civs down here? What are you? Cape Town. No, that's of no good to me. And so just like that, it goes from 5 BC to what? 10 AD. Oh, look at that. I can win a decisive victory here. And then what? Yes, so I'm going to win that. I'll take some heat from this galley. Meanwhile, I'll bring this warrior home. Now, I don't have philosophy yet. 5 more turns for this wheel. I think that all of my units are doing approximately what they're supposed to be doing right now. And let's move north through Bucharest if we can. We'll just park this unit in York. Actually, I really dislike parking units, but I don't... You know what? Maybe there's some barbarians down here. Well, you just got here by traveling through here, so I'm sure there's not. I guess we'll just park all of our units for a little while, and in a few turns we'll go scout the situation again, see if we can find any barbarians. All right, now, this is a battle I can turn in my favor. And in so doing, open up this path around the Horn of Africa. But I would really rather that Cape Town fight this battle for me. Still, though, I don't see that happening. So I was wondering if I could lure him back to Cape Town, but his barbarian encampment is here. I don't know if I could really... Never mind. His barbarian encampment is not there. Cape Town just dealt with that, and I... Son of a gun, that unit healed. Oh, jeez. Oh, no. I'm going to lose that unit. It's dead. I'm going to lose it. No, don't die, don't die, don't die. Ah, it ran away. That's amazing. Alright. What do I do now? Move very, very carefully. Right here. Here, actually. Next turn. Okay, it's 5580 now. A lot of time has passed, but actually the Battle of Watling Street happened in 61, so we can go ahead and rest this guy here and move a little bit further north, but past Bucharest, and click next turn, see what year we get up to. Yeah, so I think this is going to be the cadence from now on, that basically with each time I click next turn, we've got history to talk about. Probably quite a bit of it. So 70 AD, yep. 71 AD, I will tell you what Rome has been doing here. So Rome has occupied the southern half of Britain by now. So right about here and down, Rome controls all of that territory. With Boudicca's rebellion crushed, Wales finally under their thumb, they've got the southern half of Britain. And in fact, they put down a tribe here, which will become important again later, the Brigantes tribe, and I believe that's right about here. And that's what really enables them. So if I'm right, this is the Humber, and approximately here is where the Brigantes tribe is. And by crossing the Humber and putting down this tribe, they managed to claim the southern half of Britain. Okay, so that's that for that year. Let's us establish a plantation here. And what do we have here? Ooh, open territory. We can move faster there. All right, now I do have to worry about this galleon. I can't deal with this galleon. So I'm going to move back just a little bit and see if now I can lure him into Cape Town. Okay, well, Colossus has been built. I wanted that, but I understand it's better to get the National College. We'll skip another term here. And speaking of the National College, we will get that in 2 turns. What can we do for 2 turns? I think we're going to work on a cargo ship for 2 turns. Attila, I have a fondness for Attila. Where are you, buddy? You're up here? Yes. That makes sense. Oh, I'm going to enjoy Attila. I always enjoy Attila's company. It is so good to see you. And you've got your horse archers. Oh, but blast. Our episode is done. So let's see. 85. Where are we in 85? So I'll catch up here with history. In 80 AD, the Romans campaign into what would eventually be known as Scotland. And they meet the locals here, which are much more fierce than what they're used to. But they do succeed in fighting their way through them. Now, I say fighting their way through them. I do not say establishing forts in cities and pacifying the place. I mean fighting through it. They send like a military unit up here, gets up here, kind of rounds the coast. And at this point, they come to the conclusion that their forces are attriting at a rate where they can't sustain their deployment and they need to retreat. So they come back down here to southern Britain, and a fellow by the name of Agricola, the new Roman governor of Britain, Agricola, has taken a lesson from Boudicca, and that is don't rape, pillage, and destroy the locals. Instead, treat them with respect and give them a fair shake. Because if you do, then they won't raise your cities to the ground, and it becomes more amenable to everyone. They also, the Romans under Agricola, build long, straight, wide roads for moving troops. And on these roads can also move trade goods. So the economy starts to come to life in a way it's never really done before. And these roads enable the movement of people. And Agricola, he goes through this, he has a philosophy that what he wants to do is bring Roman ideals to the British. So he really acts kind of, if I'm not overplaying Agricola's role here, kind of as an ambassador to the British people. Rome and our culture has something to offer you. If you give us a chance, we can improve your economy. We can bring in things like the baths and public baths, cultural amenities you've never had before. This can be profitable for both of us, right? And for a period, those living in Britain start to see some benefits of Roman overlordship. So that was 84 and 85 AD. I am going to click next turn one more time just so I can get started on the National College. Okay, Statue of Zeus. I get it. And where am I in the rankings? I'm around mid. It's not altogether horrible. 1, 2, 3. We're going to do nothing right there. And this camp is built. So next turn, I'm going to start chopping forests for the National College. And I'm going to chop as fast as I can. And I'm going to pillage my own woods for it. Vatican City calls for faith. Wouldn't it be nice if I were to get that? Yorkshire has grown. My city has become religious with Catholicism. That's fantastic. And let's switch to the National College. And we will issue the order to chop down the trees Saruman style. Alright, and what research will we do next? Well, there's a great many. Let's finish construction. We'll finish construction. We'll swing north around Attila's encampment here. We will take 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Okay, I still have 3. I'm not finding that galley. We'll pause right there. I just want to sneak by. That's all I want to do, man. Okay, and we're going to cut the episode right there. Thank you for sticking with me. If you liked the episode or if you didn't like it, there's buttons for all of that. And if you'd like to hear more British history while I ineptly play Civilization, please click subscribe. It means everything to the channel. Thank you very much, and you have a good day.